In a stunning and fiery critique, Cleveland insider Mary Kay Cabot has just gone completely scorched earth, publicly blasting the Browns coaching staff for their baffling decision to replace Shedeur Sanders with Dillon Gabriel in the aftermath of that ugly Vikings loss. Her message was not a simple critique, it was a direct accusation, as she declared, "You don't bench your most talented quarterback to protect feelings. This is sabotage, plain and simple." And now, in the wake of her explosive comments, Browns fans are having a complete and total meltdown online.
Insider Mary Kay makes her little small jab. Browns rookie quarterback Dillon Gabriel unable to finish the job as Vikings win 21-17 on the last play of the game, last drive. So, as I said before,
and we have to sometimes remember that these are very, very young men. People come into the NFL with different levels of maturity. In Tennessee right now, we're hearing Brian Callahan have to stand up there and say that Cam Ward shouldn't have said that his team is ASS, and everybody has different levels of maturity. So
I'll say it if you won't.
these are young guys, and not all of them speak the same way. Now, you looked at Dillon Gabriel, and and he said some things in a very mature fashion, and we've heard other quarterbacks do that, many other quarterbacks.
In a move that has the entire NFL world buzzing, Mary Kay Cabot just threw the single coldest, most brutal shot at Dillon Gabriel that you will see all season, and the internet is absolutely losing its collective mind. After the Cleveland Browns fell to the Minnesota Vikings by a score of 21-17, Cleveland's most plugged in and respected insider did not hold back for a single second, declaring that Dillon Gabriel straight up couldn't finish the job. And listen, when someone like Mary Kay Cabot, a journalist who has been covering this team for decades, comes out swinging with that kind of raw, unfiltered criticism, you know for a fact that something serious is brewing behind the scenes. Because while Dillon Gabriel was out there on the field, checking down for his dear life and throwing 5-yard dump-offs as if he was playing scared.
So once again, as I said before, Dillon Gabriel had his first start today. Many fans, believe it or not, was not impressed with his performance. Even Mary Kay threw a slick jab at him, saying he could not get the job done. You won't get the job done throwing little check downs here and there. That will not get it done. It worked today against the Minnesota Vikings, but defenses make adjustments. They will start noticing. They have to use little rollouts to get that Dillon Gabriel vision downfield, being able to see. Dillon Gabriel cannot just sit in the pocket and make reads. If you are a defensive coordinator, you cloud the outside and make him throw. That's where he will struggle. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not hating on the kid, but I'm going to read out to you.
The question is no longer if, it has now become a deafening roar of when. And after what we just witnessed in that game, that clock might be ticking with a speed that not even the front office expected. So allow me to break down what truly went down in this pivotal game. Because this isn't just about one single isolated loss anymore. This is now about a franchise that has arrived at a critical crossroads. A franchise staring down a fan base that is completely and utterly fed up with moral victories. And it's about a young quarterback who might have just in his very first start shown the entire world exactly why those Shedeur Sanders chants are not going away anytime soon.
Overseas, you guys can see Shedeur Sanders was shown. Tony Grossi made a quick hate towards Shedeur Sanders, talking about they don't know who the starting quarterback is. Listen, it's not a game. Many people want to see Shedeur Sanders. Regardless of where you go, you're going to see him until he gets his shot. Everybody know it. I don't care what the Cleveland Browns does, along with Kevin Stefanski, when it comes to this play calling. You cannot.
So Dillon Gabriel got his first real shot as a starter in the NFL against the Minnesota Vikings. And look, I am not here to pile on the kid unnecessarily, but we have to call this performance exactly what it was. This performance, it was safe. It was painfully conservative. It was the football equivalent of going to a 5-star Michelin-rated restaurant and ordering the plain, unseasoned chicken breast. Yeah, it is technically food, but is anyone in that room walking away truly satisfied?
As can see, Dillon Gabriel is terrible. Shedeur Sanders' best quarterback on the roster is not even close. Flacco is done. Someone else says at least Dillon Gabriel played well, not well enough to keep Sanders' color away. Jokes here and there. Dillon Gabriel, as a quarterback, I do hope we see more of him. They fell 21-17, as you guys can see. As we keep scrolling, just showing you guys some of the comments. Can Dillon Gabriel throw more than 5-10 yards? I agree with him 100%. That's all I saw.
He did. And I'm a Shedeur fan, and I hope he gets a fair chance at some point, somewhere, to maximize his skills, whatever they may be. We won't find out until he has a chance to play. But my disappointment in it was, and I don't know that he made this connection, and this may just be a product of being not yet 25 and your brain isn't fully formed, and you don't understand the connection between the things you do and the consequences, but it did overshadow what was supposed to be Dillon Gabriel's day.
The question isn't if anymore, it's when. And after what we just witnessed, that clock might be ticking faster than anyone expected. So let me break down what really went down in this game. Because this isn't just about one loss. This is about a franchise at a crossroads, a fan base that's tired of moral victories, and a young quarterback who might have just shown us exactly why the Shedeur Sanders chants aren't going away anytime soon. Dillon Gabriel got his first real shot as a starter against Minnesota. And look, I'm not here to pile on the kid unnecessarily, but we have to call it what it is. This performance was safe, it was conservative, it was the football equivalent of ordering plain chicken at a 5-star restaurant. Yeah, it's technically food, but is anyone really satisfied? The Browns fell 21-17 on the last drive of the game, and while some people want to give Dillon credit for managing the offense, let's be honest about what we actually saw out there. The checkdowns. My God, the checkdowns. It felt like every other throw was a 5-yard safety valve to the running back, or a quick hitch to the slot receiver. And here's the thing, against Minnesota's defense today, it worked just enough to keep things competitive. But what happens next week? What happens when defensive coordinators across the league watch this film and realize they can basically take away everything downfield and force Dillon to beat them with his arm? That's when the real issues start showing up. You can't just sit in the pocket and go through your progressions when you're Dillon Gabriel's size. That's not me being disrespectful, that's just reality. The kid has to get outside the pocket, roll out, and create different throwing lanes just to see his receivers downfield. And yeah, he's got mobility, he can move around, but that's not a sustainable offense in the NFL. You know how many rollouts and designed bootlegs you can run before defenses start sitting on them. Maybe 2-3 games max before they've got it figured out. Mary Kay didn't mince words either. She called it exactly what it was, unable to finish the job. And coming from her, that's not just some hot take artist trying to get clicks. Mary Kay Cabot has been embedded with this organization for years. She's got sources. She knows what's being said in those meeting rooms, in those hallway conversations when the cameras are off. So when she puts it out there that bluntly, you better believe there's some truth behind it. The Vikings won 21-17 on the last play of the game. Think about that for a second. The Browns had chances. They were in it the whole way. But when it mattered most, when the game was on the line, and Dillon needed to step up and make a play that changes the narrative, it didn't happen. And that's the part that's gonna stick with people. Now let's talk about what's really got Browns fans fired up. And it's not just this one game, it's the elephant in the room that nobody in the organization wants to address directly. Shedeur Sanders is sitting right there on the roster, and everyone with eyeballs knows he's the better quarterback. I'm talking fans, analysts, probably half the guys in that locker room. Everybody knows it, except apparently Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff. Go look at Twitter right now. Go check the comments under any Browns post. It's not even close. Dillon Gabriel is terrible. Shedeur Sanders, best quarterback on the roster, and it's not even close. That's not hate. That's just people watching football and calling what they see. Another fan said, at least Dillon Gabriel played well. Not well enough to keep Sanders on the sideline though. Even when people try to be positive about Dillon, they can't help but circle back to the same conclusion. Shedeur should be out there. And here's what gets me. The Browns organization is acting like this is some big mystery, like they haven't decided who gives them the best chance to win. Come on, man. We all watch college football. We all saw what Shedeur did at Colorado, dealing with pressure, making throws into tight windows, leading fourth quarter comebacks. That's not about potential. That's about proven production at the highest level of competition outside the NFL. Even overseas, people are talking about this situation. Shedeur was shown in footage, and immediately, the conversation shifted to why he's not playing. Tony Gee threw some shade, making comments about how they don't even know who the starting quarterback is in Cleveland. And you know what? He's not wrong to be confused, because from the outside looking in, this looks like organizational stubbornness. It looks like the Browns are trying to justify a decision they already made in training camp, rather than adjusting to what's actually best for the team right now. Let me hit you with some real talk, because I know some of y'all are gonna say I'm just hating on Dillon Gabriel for no reason. That's not it at all. Dillon's a good kid, he works hard, he came from a solid college program. But good isn't good enough in Cleveland right now. This franchise has been starving for quarterback play since forever. They finally draft a guy who has legitimate franchise potential in Shedeur Sanders, and they're keeping him on the bench. Why exactly? To protect his confidence? To let Dillon develop? Development happens when you're actually in the game, making real reads against real NFL defenses that are game planning specifically for you. You think Shedeur can't handle that? The same guy who dealt with primetime pressure every single week at Colorado, with his dad coaching him, with the entire sports world watching his every move, analyzing every throw? That guy can't handle starting for the Browns? Please, here's what I think is really going on, and call me crazy if you want. I think the coaching staff made a decision before the season that Dillon was their guy. Maybe because of how he looked in practice, maybe because of the system fit, whatever. And now they're pot committed. They don't want to admit they might have gotten it wrong because that opens up a whole other conversation about decision making and evaluation. So instead, we're stuck watching these performances where Dillon does just enough to not lose his job, but not nearly enough to convince anyone he's actually the answer. The fans are restless, and rightfully so. One comment that really stuck out to me: can Dillon Gabriel throw more than 5-10 yards? That's harsh, but it's also exactly what everyone was thinking while watching this game. The deep ball wasn't there. The anticipation throws weren't there. The I'm taking over this game moments weren't there. It was just fine, and fine doesn't cut it in the NFL. Look at what defenses are gonna do now that they have film on Dillon as a starter. They're gonna crowd the line of scrimmage, take away those easy checkdowns, cloud the outside receivers, and dare him to make tight window throws over the middle or take shots downfield. And when he has to roll out every other play just to create a passing lane, they're gonna start keeping a spy on him, keeping him contained in the pocket where he's most uncomfortable. That's when this whole thing falls apart. That's when Kevin Stefanski is standing at a podium after a 27-10 loss talking about execution and staying the course, while reporters are asking the only question that matters: when does Shedeur get his shot? And here's the twist that nobody's really talking about yet. What if Dillon Gabriel actually knows he's on borrowed time? What if he's playing scared because he can feel that pressure, knowing that one bad game might be all it takes for the organization to finally make the switch? That's gotta be in the back of his mind every single snap. And playing quarterback scared, that's how you get exactly what we saw today: conservative, safe, and ultimately not enough. Meanwhile, Shedeur's sitting there, staying ready, working in practice, watching film, knowing his moment is coming. And when it does, that's when things get really interesting for the Browns, because Shedeur's not coming in to manage games or throw checkdowns. He's coming in to show everyone why he was the most pro-ready quarterback in his draft class. But here's where it gets tricky for Cleveland, and this is something that should genuinely worry Browns fans. Every week that goes by with Dillon starting and Shedeur on the bench, you're wasting valuable development time for your franchise quarterback. The guy who's supposed to be your future is watching from the sideline instead of getting real reps, real experience, and real chemistry with his receivers. That's not just a missed opportunity. That's borderline organizational malpractice if Shedeur really is as good as everyone thinks he is. So what happens next? Does Cleveland stick with Dillon for another week? Another month? Hoping he suddenly develops the ability to see over the line and push the ball downfield? Do they wait until they're mathematically eliminated from playoff contention before making the switch, wasting an entire season of Shedeur's development? Or do they rip the band-aid off now, give the fans what they want, and see what they really have in their prized rookie? Because I'll tell you this much: after Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most respected voices covering this team, comes out and says Dillon couldn't finish the job, that's not just media noise. That's a signal that the walls are starting to close in. The honeymoon period is over. The patience is running out, and the Shedeur Sanders era in Cleveland might be closer than anyone in that building wants to admit. But wait, because what happened after this game might be even more telling than the game itself. The fan reactions, the social media explosion, the insider whispers that are starting to leak out. That's where this story really takes off. And trust me, you're not ready for what some people are saying behind closed doors about this quarterback situation. So if you thought the game was dramatic, the aftermath has been absolutely nuclear. Social media went into full meltdown mode the second that final whistle blew, and the consensus was pretty much unanimous. Cleveland's got a quarterback problem, and it's not the one sitting on the bench. Let's dive into what the people are really saying, because this is where you see the raw, unfiltered truth about how fans actually feel. No PR spin, no coach speak, just real reactions from people who invest their time, money, and emotions into this team every single week. Dillon Gabriel is terrible, Shedeur Sanders best quarterback on the roster, and it's not even close. That comment alone got thousands of likes, hundreds of shares, and sparked entire thread debates about what Cleveland should do moving forward. But here's what really tells you everything you need to know. Even the people trying to defend Dillon couldn't really defend him. The best anyone could come up with was at least he played well, but then immediately followed it with not well enough to keep Sanders on the sideline though. That's not support, that's resignation. That's fans saying, yeah, he was okay, but we all know who we really want to see out there. Another comment that went viral: can Dillon Gabriel throw more than 5-10 yards? And the response was immediate agreement across the board. People were posting screenshots of his passing chart, showing how virtually every completion was at or behind the line of scrimmage or within 5 yards of the line. That's not an NFL offense in 2025. That's a glorified running game with occasional passing. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that should have the Browns front office seriously concerned. It's not just casual fans talking about this anymore. It's not just Twitter trolls and hot take artists. We're starting to see analysts, former players, people with actual football credibility start to question what Cleveland's doing with this quarterback situation. The checkdown criticism is valid, and here's why it matters more than people might realize. When you establish yourself as a quarterback who won't push the ball downfield, defenses start playing you completely differently. They creep up, they crowd the box, and they make it harder for your running game to be effective. Everything compounds. Your offense becomes predictable, limited, and easy to game plan against. And the height issue, look, I know that sounds superficial, but it's a real thing in the NFL. When you can't see over your offensive line, you miss throwing windows, you miss receivers coming open, and you hold the ball longer than you should because you're trying to create angles where you can actually see your targets. That leads to sacks, fumbles, and drive-killing negative plays. It's not Dillon's fault he's not 6'4", but it is a limitation that affects his ability to play the position at the highest level. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room that really has people fired up: the perception that Cleveland is protecting Dillon for the wrong reasons. Because here's what fans see. They see an organization that drafted a quarterback they clearly believe in, that clearly has the talent to play right now, and yet they're keeping him on the bench while trotting out a guy who's showing everyone exactly why he shouldn't be the starter. Some people are speculating it's about the money, about contract situations, about not wanting to admit mistakes. Others think it's about Kevin Stefanski being stubborn, wanting to prove he can develop any quarterback regardless of physical limitations. Whatever the reason, it's not sitting well with a fan base that's already been through decades of quarterback purgatory. And here's the part that actually gives me hope for Browns fans, even though I know a lot of you are frustrated right now. Shedeur Sanders is legitimately the real deal. This isn't about blind faith or wishful thinking. This is about a quarterback who showed out at the highest level of college football, who has the pedigree, the work ethic, and the mental toughness to succeed in the NFL. Think about what Shedeur dealt with at Colorado, playing for his father with all that pressure and scrutiny, dealing with a rebuilding program that wasn't exactly loaded with NFL talent around him, facing some of the best defenses in college football week after week, and still putting up numbers, still making plays, still winning games that Colorado had no business winning. That's not luck. That's not just talent. That's a competitor who elevates everyone around him. The Browns fans deserve to see that. They've earned it after years of Baker Mayfield drama, Deshaun Watson injuries, and a revolving door of mediocre quarterback play. Shedeur represents hope, represents potential, represents the possibility that maybe, just maybe, Cleveland finally found their guy. But every week that passes with him on the bench feels like a wasted opportunity. Because here's the reality that nobody in the organization wants to say out loud. This season is probably cooked anyway in terms of making a deep playoff run. So why not give Shedeur the reps? Why not let him learn, grow, and take his lumps now so that next year you're starting from a position of experience rather than starting from scratch? The fan reaction tells you everything you need to know about where this situation is headed. When your own supporters are this unified in wanting to see a change, when respected insiders like Mary Kay are throwing shade at your starter, when every social media post becomes a referendum on your quarterback decision, that's not sustainable. Something's gotta give. And look, I genuinely feel for Dillon Gabriel in all this. He's caught in an impossible situation. He didn't ask to be the placeholder guy. He didn't ask to be the target of all this frustration. But that's the position he's in, and every mediocre performance just adds fuel to the fire. The truth is, Cleveland might have actually done Dillon a disservice by starting him. If they'd gone with Shedeur from day one, there's no controversy. Dillon's the reliable backup, the veteran presence, the insurance policy. Instead, they created this situation where he's under a microscope, where every checkdown is scrutinized, where one bad game could end his starting job permanently. Meanwhile, Shedeur's sitting there, and you know he's watching all of this. You know he's seeing the fan support, hearing the chants, reading the comments. And champions, they remember stuff like that. They remember who believed in them when the organization didn't. That's the kind of thing that motivates a player to absolutely ball out when they finally get their opportunity. So here's what I think happens next, and you can bookmark this prediction. Cleveland gives Dillon maybe one, maybe two more starts. If the same issues show up, the checkdowns, the limited downfield passing, the inability to take over games, they'll make the switch. They'll have no choice because the pressure will be too intense, the criticism too loud, the missed opportunities too obvious. And when Shedeur finally gets his shot, that's when we'll really see what this Browns team can be, because talent-wise, they're not that far off. They've got weapons on offense. They've got playmakers on defense. What they're missing is that quarterback who can elevate everyone, who can make the throws that change games, who can be the face of a franchise moving forward. Shedeur Sanders is that guy. Browns fans know it. Most of the national media knows it. And deep down, I think even the Cleveland coaching staff knows it too. They're just waiting for the right moment to pull the trigger, trying to manage the situation without creating complete chaos. But here's the thing about waiting for the right moment. Sometimes that moment never comes unless you create it. Sometimes you just gotta rip the band-aid off, deal with the short-term awkwardness, and trust that your best player is gonna show out when given the opportunity. The clock's ticking. The fans are restless. Mary Kay Cabot's already fired the first shot. How much longer can Cleveland justify keeping Shedeur Sanders on the bench? And more importantly, when he finally gets his chance, is he gonna prove everyone right and become the franchise quarterback Cleveland's been desperately searching for? This is a story that's far from over, and trust me, you're gonna want to follow every twist and turn. Drop a comment and let me know, are the Browns making a mistake by keeping Shedeur on the bench, or does Dillon Gabriel deserve more time to prove himself? And most importantly, when do you think we'll finally see Shedeur Sanders get his shot? Hit that subscribe button because this quarterback controversy is just getting started, and you know I'm going to be breaking down every development as it happens. Until next time, stay locked in.